I say, Sam, I say we get started here.
Yeah, we have quite a great turnout. This is amazing. Maybe just to kick things off, I'll say a few words. So my name is Sam. I'm on the Work on Climate core team. This is an event hosted by Work on Climate. I'm not sure if all of you are in the Work on Climate community. If you are not, we are an organization dedicated to helping people work on climate. So if you want to work on climate change but aren't for whatever reason, or want to improve the way you're working on climate change, we're here to provide resources and a community and actionable items, learning groups for that. Thanks, Rohan, for putting the link in the description. And yeah, so I met Sheila, Dorothy, and Joe at the Drawdown and CSE conference. I think it was back in January. And they had a booth about their Carbon Crew program. And I was completely blown away by just how meticulously they thought through the program. And so I just had to extend the invite to have them go talk to you guys. So I'll stop talking and leave it off to them.
Great, Sam. Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time this evening to learn about our exciting new project that we believe could transform efforts to reduce global warming, the Carbon Crew. It's a combination that weaves together research from environmental science, in particular Project Drawdown research, and we couple that with research from the social sciences on how to make change happen. But before we begin our presentation today, I just wanted you to know we're going to take about 20 minutes to walk you through a set of slides, and it'll be followed by a Q&A. And we want you to keep in mind, as you see the slides and you hear the presentation, something that resonates with you. So if you would be willing to, we would ask that you would share the one or two points that really seem to make a difference for you. If you have a question, we're going to ask you to please put your questions in the Q&A, and we will make sure to answer them first in the session that follows. And please, if you're not speaking at this point, we'd ask everybody to mute so that we have no feedback or dogs barking in the background. Please excuse mine if it happens. So let's begin. On this first slide, you see our logo. And what I hope you see is the Earth surrounded by a big C representing carbon, which is in the atmosphere in disproportional amounts right now. And that atmospheric carbon is what this is all about. We need to try to take that carbon out of the atmosphere. And as you can see in the logo, and the curve that goes around the top of the carbon symbol, that curve represents the first part on the left, the Keeling curve, or the curve that demonstrates the exponential growth of carbon in the atmosphere since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. At the top of that curve, the point right at the top, that's drawdown. That's where the carbon emissions cease and we go to a carbon neutral environment and then begin to start declining. And as you can follow those lines, those arrows go sequestering that carbon back into the two sinks. The most important one, the earth, the soil, where we pulled it out to begin with when we started burning fossil fuels, and the other back into the ocean. So that is our logo, and our name, Carbon Reduction for Earth Wellbeing, represents also the idea of crew connecting to signaling how we hope people within our groups will work together and support one another and inspire each other as crews do. So with that in mind, we're looking for people like you. We're not looking to convince climate deniers. We're looking for people like you who are already interested in the environment, who we would call early adopters, to move this project forward. And our challenges are many. But the four that we want to focus on today, the first one, of course, is, as I just said, taking that carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and moving it back, sequestering it back down into the two major sinks in the earth and the sea. And as you remember, many of you, that 350 parts per million was supposed to be the tipping point, and that the world would start, destroying itself before our eyes. Well, we're all still here, and I'm sad to tell you that we're now at 417 parts per million as of December 2020. But we have hope. So as we get to our second challenge, the one that we want to focus on is the hope that is in the research of Project Drawdown. Project Drawdown, for those of you who are not familiar with the work, was 100 top solutions to solving and reversing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the founder of this, Paul Hawken, basically employed 240 scientists or more to come up with these top solutions, which many of them are scalable. And if you look at his book called Project Drawdown, you'll see the in-depth scientific analysis of each of these concepts. I just want to point out a few to you. The number one solution is in the area of materials. It's refrigerants and refrigerant management. The second most important and effective way to take carbon out of the atmosphere is through putting wind turbines, not just offshore, but onshore. The third one is one that's well within our reach at the household level, and that's about reducing food waste. And if you actually took that reduction of food waste, which we'll describe in a little more detail, and looked at the methane that most of us throw our organic material in landfills, where anaerobically it is then broken down into methane that's 21 times more dangerous to greenhouse gas than even carbon dioxide. The fourth one is plant-rich diets, which again, we have much to do with that. The fifth one, we don't have so much to do with, but we can get plants, replanting of trees, if we should take them down, put back up in temperate zones. It's the number 12 solution, but making sure that we have keeping our forests intact. So this is a detailed explanation of the 100 top solutions. Many of them, 80 of them, are already being used at national and state levels around the globe. All right, so what is our next challenge? As we've just been saying, it's the challenge of reducing our carbon greenhouse gases so that we can keep our global temperature from rising above 1.5 degrees. And how are we going to do that? It's by changing some habits that will start to get us to that carbon neutral drawdown point. Our immediate target in our work is trying to look out 5-year projections to reduce in our own habits at the household level 50% reductions, so that we're not waiting, because we can't wait till the last moment. Another challenge of our work is really the challenge of trying to get this message out to enough people in our communities such that we can reach a tipping point in having enough people in enough important places doing the right thing and changing some of their habits and the habits of their families, friends, and colleagues. And we know that we can get there if we get to 3.5% of our population. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. One of the other major challenge, and it's the last one that I want to talk about right now, is that when we look at our brains, many of us, when we think of climate change, get overwhelmed by what we see as the negative news out there, that poor polar bear on that piece of ice floating. We need to change that vision. We need to get hopeful, and it's not just dreaming, it's hope based on science that we can create change that will pull us towards more creative and collaborative and responsible actions. This isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. It's creating an opportunity for us. And when you look at the brain, the two major centers in kind of magenta and blue represent the prefrontal cortex, where all of us do our problem solving. But if the limbic center in blue is activated because we get emotional, we get anxious, we get fearful, we can actually stop ourselves from acting and thinking logically and following the science. So we must change our vision. We have to stay positive, and we have to keep our faith in the scientists who are doing this work. It can be done. It will be done. It's not the environment. It's our environment. We've got to change that language to a language of positive hopefulness and opportunity. As the originator, a man named Paul Hawken, many of you might have known him from Smith and Hawken, he makes this wonderful statement that we think really frames this conversation. We see global warming as an invitation to build, innovate, and effect change, a pathway that awakens creativity, compassion, and genius. And this is the hope that we can get people inspired through the Carbon Crew Project. Secretary General of the UN in January also spoke at the conference that Sam and Sheila and Dorothy, who are the co-founders of this, we all heard Secretary Guterres mention the urgent need for us to take action as a whole society. And one of the things he said that really is just so reinforcing for why Crew could be so important to your community is that of all the global emissions right now affecting us, 2/3 of them happen at the household level. Many of us, we think that we have to wait for government to act or corporations to change their dirty ways. No, 2/3 of all emissions are happening at the household level, where we can and will make a difference. So we're looking for people like you. And if you look at this curve, which represents the diffusion of any innovation, it's a bell-shaped curve. There's always on the left-hand side, those innovators, those people willing to take risks, who have the means and the mindset to take great risks. They are the 2.5% of the population. Most of us on this call tonight fall in the category of early adopters. And we're real important because we have enough knowledge and enough energy and innovation to get moving. And then we will move the majority, the early majority, into further action. So this is how it works. Those innovators trigger with their research and ideas, us early adopters, who then move the majority and finally move the business and policy behaviors in the direction that we need. The research in social science, again, of Erica Chenoweth at Harvard, suggests that it only takes 3.5% of any population to spark significant change. And that is if you activate and sustain their participation. Again, our project, as you will see, does both of those things. And why Crew? Well, one of the things that a researcher named Kay Hayhoe has suggested, Catherine Hayhoe, she was the lead author of the 4th National Climate Assessment. And she said that the most important thing that we can do to affect climate change is talk about it. So when we look at this chart, we're asking you to speak from your heart, from your own passion about this subject, and do it with your friends. Speak to your family, speak to your colleagues, speak to people in your book club, speak to people you know. whether you do it the old-fashioned way through the phone and letters to the editor, or you do it through social media platforms, speak about it. That's how we'll get exponential growth. Remember, and this is a quote of a very famous sociologist, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens could change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. So we have, as Sam mentioned earlier, we have developed a packet of materials, which thanks to COVID, we had the time to work together on. And that packet of materials makes it really easy and effective for you to pick up our curriculum, and all the resources that you need will be there. And those resources are, again, based on the scientific solutions of Project Drawdown. Because we believe with the right resources, we can help you inspire people and then guide them in small groups of approximately 4 to 8 people through a handbook, which we believe is a much more engaging and reachable text for you to help people through the science of climate change. It's called the 2040 Handbook, and it is written by a man who was inspired by Paul Hawken from Project Drawdown. So we will use a guide of questions and activities that we've designed to help you activate the people in your small group so that they'll create a personal carbon action plan that will help reduce their greenhouse gases by 50% by 2030. We also have built into this model a support system that we believe will help foster cohesion and accountability. And again, we will give you the resources, the links, the videos, the articles that will connect the crew beyond the small number in your particular crew. And finally, hopefully, we do our job well enough to make our participants feel like they can replicate this process with their circle of early innovators. That's how we get to exponential growth. When they're ready, and we are, again, willing and able to support them, have them join one of our crews, do whatever it takes, because that is the key. We must get our crews to replicate and create more crews. And that's how we get to that 3.5 tipping point. So by keeping our groups small, we can get peer-to-peer accountability. And we can get everyone in the group to speak, because when we hear ourselves say things, not only does it reinforce it for ourselves, but it also really, the research suggests, when we say something and we commit to that by uttering it aloud, we can double the chance that, the probability, I should say, that you'll do it actually by putting in a date for when you think you could accomplish this, and then reporting on that progress with your buddy, which we'll talk about in a minute. This, hopefully, all of these conversations in small groups will inspire people's own actions, and resources that they'll share with you will inspire you to make your commitments. So the accountability system, this is what we hope for, that every participant in our crew can buddy up with somebody in that crew, if they want to, for checking on each other and supporting one another. Because sometimes, like when you go to a conference, you hear something, you're not sure that you got it straight. So that buddy system can help you stay on track. And it's also what we are hoping for, is that we are hoping to get each of the groups as a whole to regularly check in with one another. And we recommend that groups, the whole group, after the 5th session, connects 6 weeks out, 3 months out, and 6 months out, and just to check in on the group. Our PCAPs, we ask and we give people the template So there are many ways to write a personal carbon action plan, but we give you our template and we just ask you to cut and paste and take what you're ready to do and drop the rest. And one of the other interesting elements that we added to the crew project was something called Overshoot Day. And if you haven't seen this, we urge you to go to overshootday.org. And on that website, it's a series of questions. It's a very rough way to analyze, in effect, what date in a year you will exceed the limit of resources and services, ecological resources, I should say, to meet your current habits. And at the end of the 5 sessions, on the 5th one, we ask people to repeat that survey with your PCAP in mind, as if you've already done and fully implemented everything you want to do in those 5 years. And what we found is people get a good lift out of this, that it encourages them because they can see, if I really do implement all these things, I will dramatically reduce the resources I'm using and push out my overshoot day. So it's a very good way for you to compare the beginning of your journey to the end. So how to start? One of the things we'd urge you to do, and the 2040 Handbook is the basis of a film, because Damon Gameau is also a filmmaker, and he made a very uplifting and wonderfully entertaining movie called 2040 based on the book. So if you can watch the movie, you can get it on Netflix. It's out there on the internet. Buy and read Gameau's book, the 2040 Handbook, which you can get on Amazon. Brainstorm in your own head, who are those people and where in your life you can find those early, what you think are early adopters, people who have expressed some interest in the climate and in our environment, and invite them. We will even give you written invitations to assist you in that. Use our guidelines, use our frequently asked questions and other resources to get ready for your sessions, and set your dates and get them out there. Here's the 2040 Handbook, what it looks like. You can see it on Amazon. But this is the book, and it's filled not only with the science and concrete suggestions, but it even includes some great recipes, which I must admit I haven't tried, but they look very interesting. So, as Damon says, we are receiving feedback from our planet, offering us the opportunity to change and live a healthier life, a life of cheaper electricity, healthier food, thriving ecosystems, cleaner transport, and connected communities. The simple actions you take today will help our planet. Damon Gameau was inspired to do this when he returned from the Amazon and when he became a new dad and decided he needed to do something for the future for his daughter's sake. So here's how we're hoping to do it. In our area of the eastern end of Long Island, we have about 140,000 people. And by generating crews that will then generate and spin off and create their own crews, with just 5, depending on the size of the crew, 5 or 6 generations, we can get to that point, which would be 3.5% of our population. And that is, amazing. So that just 5 iterations out, we can do that. So how about you? What is your role in this moment in history? Will you develop a crew? Will you become a member of a crew? If so, we would invite you to come to our drawdowneastend.org website and click on Game On, where you can get all the materials that we've discussed, because with that, you can make all the difference. We know that this is something that is doable. We've done it now 5 times out, And we are hoping to continue to do it. If you have any specific questions that we don't answer tonight, or as you look at the materials that you want more information about, please don't hesitate to send us an email at carboncrew50@gmail. And before I close, I'd like to share with you a poem that was written by one of our co-founders, Sheila Pfeiffer. It's a prayer for the world. In the name of silence, the ground of our being, the word through whom the silence speaks, and the spirit who unsettles and inspire us, we pray. May the smell of thyme and lavender greet us. May the catbird call and dot among the leaves and berries. May the yarrow gleam and the wellspring burble, heralding promise in this microcosm of a larger promise. As we come engulfed with sorrow for degradation of our earth, crushed by our inherent racism and white privilege, broken by the bodies we see afar and feel in our arms, send us new resolve and a renewed purpose. May we act in bold and harmonious ways to mend the web. May we give thanks for what we can and resolve to change the rest. May we receive the gifts we need so that we can be a gift to others. May we make a beginning toward wholeness for shattered hearts and yearning earth. Shower us with fresh dreams and joy and resolve, O Spirit, that we may shed corrosive fear and embrace your summons. Grant us light to walk boldly. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for presenting this material. And thank each of you for being here and listening to this presentation on Carbon Crew Project. So if anybody has any questions, we'd love to take them now. There's something in the chat. Have you used parts of the eco teams initiative? We don't know about that, but we'd love to, David. So if you could put a link in there, that would really be terrific. Does anybody have any questions about how they might set up a crew themselves? Janet, welcome. I didn't see you there before. Howdy.
We had also asked, as you were listening, if there was something that resonated with you.
Yeah.
It would be wonderful if someone would like to volunteer something that might have really triggered something for you. Please unmute yourself.
Just unmute yourself
and share.
It's Margaret here. Oops, I'll put my picture on. There was that one slide that I wish I could have seen again, where it was sort of like the exponential increase, you know, I know you can't put your slides back on, I guess, but that was very interesting. Yeah, I do think small groups and talking to people is one way to go. I love that 2/3 of the global CO2 emissions is from households, because I'm always wanting to get people to change their lifestyle, but everybody goes, yeah, but it's the big fossil fuel companies and you got to address that. And I'm always thinking we have to change our consumption, you know, and so I loved hearing that, actually.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Margaret, because that's what jumped out at us. We were listening to this whole conference, and when Guterres said that, and then it was reinforced by another speaker involved with climate at the UN, that was the thing that just said, yes, this is why the carbon crews in small groups can make that difference. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And the curve you're referring to is the Keeling curve, which is Professor Keeling was had shown us the exponential growth of carbon dioxide.
No, not that curve. I was talking about when you broke down the thing, like how many people were in the north and yeah, that was.
I can share that with you another time, Margaret.
Great. Send it to you.
Yeah.
It would be hard to go back and get it right this minute, but it is exponential growth is pretty phenomenal. and people don't realize it. And that's why it really is so important. I mean, it's really important to take hold of your own personal choices and create your own personal carbon action plan and follow through on it. But it's equally important to talk about it to others and to get as many other people as you can to do it, because that's what will create that tipping point where we really will make a significant change. I mean, that's your answer to people who say, oh, it's the spouting smokestacks and the big corporations, because it isn't. It's personal household choices, but we have to get enough people to be changing their personal household choices.
Oh, Janet's got a great question here. Thank you so much for that, Janet. So I'd like you to know a little bit about Janet before I answer this question. She's the original California organic farm grower. And she did that before anyone else was knowing about this. There you are, Janet. Yeah, thank you for being a leader for us all. But she's asking, what can we do at the household level? And automatically, the first thing that we can do is every speck of food that we buy, we eat. And Ellen is the queen of must-go soup. Josephine has a friend, and what they call it is plana. What was that, Joe? You're unmuted.
Yeah.
But
Planovers.
Yeah.
Planiverse.
Plandovers.
So when you're going to the store and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to eat this, but I'll probably have a little left over, so I better get that too. So I'm going to have a different meal the next night. So making sure that every speck of your food, as Americans, we approximately throw out 45% of all of our food, and water and energy and transportation and plastic and packaging and all of this goes into that food that we eat, and we throw it away. 70% of what we throw away is at the household level. It's not in the restaurant or grocery stores. So that's where we can make the hugest difference. The next thing that we can do is figure out how to electrify our house with green energy. And this may take some resources that you may not have at this time. But if you do have any extra resources, there are ways. I buy special green energy that's transported through my local provider, or you can also put up solar or wind. And in our community, you can also lobby for something called citizens CCA aggregates, where we buy together as a community green energy. And once you totally electrify your home with green energy, then you get rid of all of your other appliances that are relying on gas and fossil fuels. That's not, however, you're right, the fastest one to do, but that is an incredibly powerful one to do. Another is, if you're making a 5-year plan within the next 5 years to buy an all-electric car. Thank you so much for that question. Ellen, did you have a question?
I'm trying to type it in.
Oh, well, that's okay.
But basically, my thought was, if I'm involved in other groups, but I don't necessarily want to be a leader in any of this, but is there a short, pithy way to sort of say, hey, is anyone else in this book club, kayak club? Have you heard about cruise? Are you interested in this? Have you got like a mantra or something cute and short that would work for that?
Well, I think you've just thrown down the gauntlet. We'll have to come up with that, Ellen. So you
Sorry.
can do just that. Yeah. The other thing for all of you out there, and that is, if you'd like to be part of a crew, but you don't have other early adopter friends, we'd love to put you in a list of people. And when we get a group of people together, we will create a crew. Ellen, there also might be one of us that'd be willing to support you in hosting a crew, but let's talk to you about how you might put something pithy out there to the groups that you're a part of. I think that that's the most important way we can spread that, is with the groups that we're already a part of. Thanks for that. Yeah.
And I think your logo is halfway there. I love the logo.
Well, thanks. Who is saying that?
And now I'll mute.
Oh, thanks, Ellen. Yeah, Bridge.
That was me again.
Yeah, I wanted
Okay.
to circle back on the green energy for your house. And my suggestion for everyone here is the greenest energy is the energy you don't use. It's great to be getting into alternatives and this and that may
Yeah.
be possible. It may be expensive, but we found we were able to save more than half of the electrical energy our household uses just by turning stuff off. We
Yeah.
start measuring it and we turn things off. Anything that's warm that you're not using is using electricity. You don't need to buy a fancy machine. If it's warm to the touch, it's wasting a lot of electricity, and just unplug it and plug it back in when you need it again. And that is kind of a simple thing that I would be shocked if you couldn't save 10% of your footprint just by unplugging stuff you don't need.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for that, Bridge. That's absolutely right. Really powerful. Appreciate that. Somebody else have a question? And Sam is telling us to ask a question, you punch the button down there, reactions. And Rowan, could you unmute yourself and talk to us?
Hey there, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, it's my first time here. I'm educating myself on Crew's website. I don't have a specific question. I think when coming to this meeting, I was thinking, how can we form groups and have an impact locally? I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and last decade I have been living in LA. Because of so many reasons, I moved to Vancouver recently. I was just curious how a local group can have a positive impact and bring more like-minded folks together.
Well, one of the ways that our member and really the initiator of a lot of this, Dorothy Riley, she did many of her workshops through the local libraries. You know, that's a ready-made if you're new to an area and you want to get to the community, seek out your local librarian. Many of them are really eager to get books out there and start book clubs and conversations with people. And many of our Project Drawdown conversations about food waste or composting or whatever were done through the Rogers Memorial Library in Southampton. And actually, Dara, can't people access that? Some of those talks?
Yes, they can. There should be a log of talks that we did through the Rogers Memorial Library. You could go into their bank of recordings.
In Southampton, New York.
Yeah, first I did a series of educational events teaching about Drawdown. And then I did series of workshops where we sat down and we each focused on different arenas that we wanted to be interested in. Margaret DeCruz was part of that and came over from the North Fork. I don't know if several others of you, but that was another beginning and brought us together. And out of that, eventually Drawdown East End grew and became a practicing group. Rowan, that's what we did. We created a group from there. And separate from that, then we have created this Crew opportunity because we thought we needed strategy for people actually moving to action and to do that in small workable groups. Now we're targeting that 50% reduction within the next 5 years, or plan for 5 years that would create 50% reduction of 2030. If we can help you anyway, reach out to us, take our address down.
Went
Harvard
over your
Crew 50
website.
at gmail.com.
And with Zoom, of course, people can join a crew from anywhere. But it is particularly effective if you can get people within a local area. I know that we were trying to stress, I mean, what I found both being in a member of a crew and a leader is that it creates a community of people who are all, feeling inspired and encouraged because they're working together. And it's like a book club in the sense that you're reading a couple of chapters and sitting down and discussing it, but it goes so much farther. You feel, I hate to say good about it, like a self-satisfied thing, but you're actually taking action. You're not just reading the book. You're saying, okay, so now what can I do? What am I putting in my personal action plan? And then you see everyone else in the group's action plans because you share them, and you say, oh, wow, I can do that too. Blah, blah, whatever it is. I don't want to get into too many specifics, but it is amazing how it really sparks us, not only ideas and good practices, but also a sense of community and friendship. So although it might be hard to get one started, I think if you did, it would really give you a core group that would, and then when you have that exponential thing, if each of those people went off and did it, that's where it starts to really take off.
I think both approaches of doing it locally, and so you're building a sense of community there, is really powerful. I also have to say we're having so much fun in a group crew we're doing right now with Joe, where we've got one person from Florida and a few from Long Island and somebody from Williamsburg and another person from Illinois. And we just share what's happening in our communities. I'd like to do a little just personal history. I became active in the environment back in the very early 70s and formed nonprofit groups and had conferences and did a whole host of things on and off as an activist. And first I believed in policy. And then over the years and dozens of years, I got disillusioned with policy. I did spark a green committee for the town of Southampton. And again, I found myself more powerful to lobby that group than to be in that group because they had to go by the wishes of their politicians. When I met the work of Paul Hawken, that he had scientifically found all of these solutions that we can meet this huge opportunity that's out there to stop emissions and to bring emissions down. It was a game changer for me. But the other part that was a huge game changer for me was knowing his philosophy, which was, this is happening for us. This is our opportunity for community and creativity like there's never been an opportunity for that. And then helping develop these strategies for crews and being in the crews. Joe mentioned the Earth Overshoot Day. Before we start the crew, we take our Earth Overshoot Day numbers, and after the 5th section, we take that again as though we had done what we're planning to do. And we're all just delighted at the changes that we are anticipating and starting to make. It's such a fun, it's the most fun that I have had. And I really thank my partners out there, Sheila and Joe, for creating this all together. And I know if you do this too, you'll have that same experience because it's real movement with real people affecting change with one another. So I'm sorry for talking so long there. Who else has a question or a comment or one of their favorite things? Melissa.
That was really beautiful, Dorothy. Thank you. I love that. That was really beautiful. And I guess the piece that resonated for me, that beautiful quote from Margaret Mead. And I was just hiking. I was taking a nature walk at the Quag Wildlife Refuge with my daughters. And, that place is just one of my favorite places in the world. And they do storybook trails, but they have recently done an inspiration walk. I don't know if anyone's been recently, and they put all these inspiring quotes, a lot of them related to the earth by Jane Goodall and, just really wonderful thinkers. And we were just out on a beautiful day walking, and I saw those quotes, and then that was the final one, or it was one of the ones that I saw, and my daughters and I read it, and we were just moved, and to see it again. And, my oldest daughter is almost 10 now, and she's become very passionate about the environment. And I became interested in the environment through my father. So, I'm excited to do something kind of beyond our family, even though our family is kind of where it starts. But I've just been kind of sentimental about all of that and just wanted to share that's what resonated with me. So, Thank you. And I'm excited to start a crew or be a part of a crew in some way. I'm not sure which one, but I'm interested and I'm in Hampton Bays, so I'm happy to participate or possibly lead.
Great, great. Please be in touch with us. Don't forget that our email address is carboncrew50@gmail.com. Okay, Melissa, we'll help you start a group, or you can be a part of another group if that doesn't work for you. Margaret, you had a comment?
Yes, I have two. Well, with Rohan's question, the drawdowneastend.org videos are so good. I went to every one of those, and it's a good way if you have a buddy, find a friend and just watch those with them. And I think when you have somebody who's aligned with you, then you can go out there and create a crew or get another person in. But the other thing I wanted to say is something that I've been involved with years ago, which is very similar in a way, called Transition Streets. And the Transition Streets was about helping people transition off of carbon and everything else that we're doing, street by street. And they have a system in there where you can get your neighbors to look at their electrical usage together and then figure out how they can reduce it. And it's about food and your waste. And anyway, it's another model, but it also has specific ways to look at things. And that's also something online. You can go to transitionstreets.org. And it's another resource for helping get people together in a small community. Yeah.
So Margaret, that's different than Transition Towns. That's a subgroup within Transition Towns, maybe?
Transition Towns and then Transition Streets came off as a way to organize street by street, your local community. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't know that. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or appreciations? Pat?
Yeah. Hi, Dar. First, Joe, I have to say the accent, Massachusetts, I love it. I just was really appreciating some of the words and the way you pronounce them. So thank you for that. I lived in Boston a couple of times, and it was so nice to be back there. So that was a real plus for me. Today, I Zoomed with our Town of Shelter Island supervisor and other committee chairs. I'm a co-chair of the Taylor's Island Preservation and Management Committee. And in doing this, I'm thinking our Green Committee would be a wonderful group to see about doing a crew with. And also, it was mentioned in this Zoom meeting that Sylvester Manor, our educational farm, which some people on the East End might be familiar with, they're looking for compost. They want compost. So there's this effort now on Shelter Island for household wet garbage to then go to the farm and help with the planting there and whatnot. So I know there are other farms on the East End, smaller, larger, and I just wanted to suggest that as a possible place for our, if we're not composting or if we have more than we can compost for our own use, that there might be other places that would welcome it.
Thanks a lot, Pat. That's awesome. Great.
Thank you.
I'll just pop in quickly and say that there were two people who had the extreme bravery of asking questions in advance of the event. And I think they were really, really great questions. So maybe I'll just ask them to you quickly. The first was from Anonymous, so I can't have them ask it themselves. And they ask, what are the top challenges that crew members face in sticking to their footprint reduction commitments?
I think the top challenge is we get really bold and ambitious, and our plans need to represent what we really can do. I'd like to hear, Sheila and Joe, what you'd have to say about this, but I notice that I get so excited in the meeting, and then I come and make this enormous list that's way beyond what I can really do in a certain time frame. So being realistic and scheduling it out over the 5 years would be a very wise thing for me to do, instead of thinking that I can do it all in 6 months. Sheila and Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say that that is somewhat countered or accounted for in the system we've described through the buddy system, and also in that 5th session, part of the session is to kind of look back over your own work that PCAP that you've created, and say to yourself, is this realistic? And to tweak it and to make it be something that will really be good for 5 years. And don't forget, we're really talking about a 10-year plan. We make a PCAP for 5 years. The implication here is that at that time, then you're going to do another one for the next 5 years, because we're talking about 50% reduction by 2030. So it is important to schedule, to plan. And then, you meet with your buddy, and your buddy says, hey, did you put that clothesline up yet? Are you still using that dryer? And you say, and you go out and you buy the clothesline. So, Joe?
Well, I'll use the example that just happened. When you're developing your carbon action plan, make sure you do it with your partner or your spouse, because you may have one set of ideas about how you want to change to more plant-based, or your children may not. You have to move people closer to where you may be ready to go. So I would say maybe formulate your plan, but before you solidify it, make sure you run it by your other half, because I wanted to get an electric vehicle, but I spend half my year in Florida and the other half up in Long Island, and getting back and forth, we stop along the way and see a lot of people, and my partner didn't want to be feeling strained by or constrained by the electric range of a vehicle, because we haven't got that system totally together. But I'm confident within the next 3 years, I only lease this vehicle, so that I will be buying my electric vehicle in 3 years. So that's an example. I think the other thing that many of us have put in our action plans is to, as we keep stressing, the need to replicate and create a new crew. And that can be a hardship for people who are still working or don't feel maybe that they have the confidence right now to do it. But again, if you'll look at our materials, if you'll join one of our crews and be part of one before you take on the goal of creating your own, I think you'll feel a lot more comfortable to go forward with that.
I'd like to make a note that a lot of you here, I know, have been very active in your own lives in reducing your carbon footprint already. It may be that a lot of your 5-year plan has to do with policy or community initiatives where you're bringing other people to the table, or creating a policy that's shifting things in a big way. So it's not always that I'm actually, reducing my carbon footprint by so many pounds of greenhouse gases, but it's the whole ball of wax that we put into our plans. The other thing I've been asked for our email address again, and I'm just putting it down there, and that is carboncrew50@gmail.com. Okay, carboncrew50@gmail.com. So Sam, you had another question for us?
You just answered it. The other question had to do with if you were encouraging only personal actions or also community-based actions.
Oh, right.
Perfect.
All of the above. And also some people don't have finances and they're renting someplace, so they don't have control over those things. We have to look beyond that to what we can each do. It's not all about measurement.
Or if you're a young person still living at home and you don't control the family food plan or budget. So, there's many variables that you need to consider.
Yeah, but I would say that anyone would get something, no matter how well educated you already are on the environment. you will still get something out of reading 2040 and thinking about how you can activate the ideas in there. And in some cases, as Dara was just saying, it's going to not just only be personal plans, but policy. But I think that it's just a great way to get more informed, and then you can talk to other people, because you saw that whole exponential explosion chart where the more people that we actually talk to, the more this change, the quicker this change will happen, and it has to happen.
Yeah.
So
we have time for one more short question or comment. Does anyone have something they'd like to say? Then I would like to say, Sam, thank you so much for creating this opportunity for us. Joe, thank you so much for presenting our material, and Sheila for making it with us. And thank each of you from the bottom of my heart, all of our hearts, for being the kind of people that make the difference in the world. You do make all the difference in the world. I hope you'll go from here and tell someone what you heard tonight, call someone, and take some action. Thank you very, very much.
Dara, Sheila, and Joe, you're all such an inspiration. And I'll just repeat quickly what I said at first, that I'm just blown away with how meticulous you've thought everything out, down to even like the details of your logo. I am going to create a thread on our Work on Climate Slack channel. It will basically, I encourage anyone to post on that thread to share one thing they've learned from the conversation. If you're not already in the Work on Climate Slack channel, I definitely encourage you to join. And we have tons of awesome events like this all the time, and also a great community full of very, very active people. And I will make sure to post the links to Carbon Crew 50, the emails, links to Drawdown East End, etc. in that thread. So thank you again all so much, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good
Wonderful
night, everyone.
program.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.